Okay. We hope you had a great lunch. We love the food trucks. That was super fun and to be outside and to mingle with you all. My name is Hyrum, and I am so happy to introduce our inaugural keynote panelists. It's going to be a fireside discussion, meaning a panel of one with a moderator, me. And I'm going to make that introduction now, and then I'll invite our guest to join me on the stage. Ram Shankar Siva Kumar is known to most simply by the mononym Ram. Ram is a pioneer in the AI security space, having founded and continuing to lead Microsoft's AI Red Team. In that endeavor, Ram brings together an interdisciplinary group of researchers and engineers to proactively attack AI systems to find weaknesses and failures. Ram's work on AI and security has appeared in conferences like, don't hold your breath, RSA, Black Hat, DEF CON, Blue Hat, DerbyCon, MIRCON, Infiltrate, NeurIPS, ICML, iClear, IEEE S&P, ACM-CCS, among many others. And reporters have followed suit and published about Ram and his work as covered by Bloomberg, VentureBeat, Wired, GeekWire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ram founded the adversarial threat matrix, which has become MITRE Atlas. And his work on adversarial machine learning appears notably in the National Security Commission report on artificial intelligence, the NSC-AI report that was presented to the US Congress and to the president. In addition to his professional role with reporting oversight to Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella and CTO Kevin Scott, and a collaborative work relationship with OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, Ram is currently Tech Policy Fellow at UC Berkeley and an affiliate at the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard University, where he's broadly investigating the same two questions he's been investigating for a very long time. How do we assess the safety of ML systems? What are the policy and legal ramifications of AI in the context of security? Ram is also a technical advisory board member at the University of Washington. So I can't really think of anyone who is as genuinely warm and interested in others' success as Ram. He is maddeningly modest. And although he leads a larger organization at Microsoft, he prefers to be referred to by the title Data Cowboy. His generosity is boundless, as his selflessness is sincere. All of my kids and nephews and nieces in the Seattle area, we're on the wrong slides here, know Ram personally because he has ingratiated himself into their lives through caloric extravagance like ice cream, and inhumanly and enormous chocolate bars, and gummy bears that bring incredible joy to our family gatherings in Seattle. So it's no surprise and likewise an enormous treat and brimming joy to welcome Ram to the stage. Please welcome our keynote panelist, Ram. Come have a seat here. I think Ram's budget just went up for all of your families now to get giant chocolate bars. So here's what we're gonna do. We actually don't have a strong agenda. We have topics. And I'm gonna ask Ram some topics and let him monologue, and then also invite you to participate in some of those questions. That sounds okay. Ram, I wanted to start by you just giving a background about your role in the Microsoft AI Red Team. How did it start? What were the problems then? What are the problems now?
I love, Hyrum, that you're asking me this question because you are the linchpin. So the background is Hyrum was the very first person in the Microsoft AI Red Team. In fact, so to give you a little bit more background, around like 2018, I was burned out. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to be doing machine learning for security anymore. So I took a couple of months off and, I found refuge in Berkman. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? And I did actually pretty much not much work related to machine learning and security, even though that's what I wrote in my fellowship application. And then I came back and, made a pitch to our corporate vice president saying, hey, we need to maybe I want to do securing AI systems. And, we didn't have any headcount or budget to do it at that point. And thankfully, Hyrum appeared from nowhere. And if you are wondering why this panel of one, Hyrum has saved me multiple times. And that's a different story for a different time. So Hyrum came and kind of landed one of the seminal red teaming exercise at Microsoft. And we can go into a little bit about like what it does, but it was essentially he attacked a non-security service in Azure that was controlled by machine learning systems and showed how you can kind of cause a huge denial of service. And that's when the penny really dropped. And Kevin Scott, our CTO, was like, okay, you're going to be doing more of this, right? And that's how it kind of like started. It did not start off with, hey, a huge proclamation. It did not start off with this. It started off with like really great folks like Hyrum, Will Pierce, who's now like starting like Dreadnought, this amazing company on offensive ML system. He's kind of like our second person to join the team. So it's kind of taken a lot of like twists and turns in that sense.
What would you say is the difference between what you do now and what we did back then?
Yeah, thank you for using the plural. You know, I really like listening to Josh's talk. You know, in the morning, kind of showed that how seeing longer term trends, there's a huge value in it. And for me, you know, when we were thinking about red teaming AI systems, it was purely from a traditional security perspective. And there's a lot of value in it, you know, because you want to think about very systematic way of like attacking these AI systems. And roughly around like 2021, 2020 of sorts, we were thinking around, okay, Microsoft has made all these important, you know, stakes around responsible AI. Are we actually upholding them? And so slowly we started morphing into a traditional security red team and also thinking about responsible AI failures. So again, at that point, it was very, it was still protean in that sense, but a huge kind of like coin dropped on people's head because we got access to GPT-4 in 2022. Summer of 2022, I'm gonna be even more like, if I think about it, and everything sort of changed. Like adversarial examples was kind of like our bread and butter. But now we were thinking about, hey, can the system generate content that promotes violence? Can the system generate content that can incite self-harm? Can the system generate content that is biased? So thinking of broader societal harms became even more central around when GPT-4 came in. And since then, like, we've been constantly evolving. So we have this traditional security, which is still like the bread and butter. Like, you know, you referred Gary talk about Pirate yesterday. Very traditional security focus. It very much has a power exploit sort of feeling for automating the toolkit. And then the responsible AI sort of field came into our play. And slowly we started thinking about, okay, what are some of the dangerous capabilities of these systems? And for a security audience, it's laughable, right? Hey, these systems can hardly solve like simple problems. Why are we thinking about things like self-replication? Why are we thinking about chemical and bioweapons? Why are we thinking about deception? And there's a lot of like healthy like debate to even have like, hey, is this even relevant? We should talk about that. That's kind of the third bucket of harms we think about, what we call, for lack of better terms, AI safety harms. And the last one is pretty protean itself, is what, again, a bucket that we just don't know what to call. So internally we call it uncanny valley harms. Can people who interact with these systems form like parasocial relationships with these systems? Can you have romantic attachments to this? And again, if I were to think back, in CAMLIS 2016, Hyrum, if I had submitted a proposal, I'm pretty sure it would have been rejected. I would have rejected myself because it's, as security professionals, we're not thinking around, hey, can this system form a romantic relationship with the user? But given the state where we are with red teaming, we have made a conscious choice to kind of bring those disparate buckets of harms under one umbrella.
So speaking of the way that this is differentiated from traditional cybersecurity red teaming, can you help us differentiate I think a lot of people in our audience are familiar with even model evals.
Yeah.
So what would the difference be between a model eval and what you do on your team at Microsoft?
Yeah, great question. If I were to think back, I think it's a paper by Zachary Lipton. It's like about like AI red teaming, like Silver Bullet or Security Theater. It's really worth a good read. It's a very good critique on the state of AI red teaming itself. The name holds very different meanings for different people. Even when we talk to our colleagues, in other companies, the word AI red teaming seems to mean very different things. And I can tell you like how we think about this in Microsoft and how we contrast that with evals, but this may not be the answer. It's just how it's one answer for you to consider. So the way we think, at least in Microsoft, is thinking about this framework of identifying harms, measuring harms, and managing the harms. This comes very much from the the NIST sort of language. So if you're following the NIST Cyber AI RMF, it very much maps neatly to it. So identifying the harms is what the AI Red Team does. It's what it's a promise that my team has made to Microsoft. But once you identify a harm, you want to kind of understand how prevalent are those harms in your system? And that comes through the measurement pillar. And the way I kind of distinguish, and we've also had very healthy debates, like, are we doing red teaming? Are we doing like measurement? The way I think about measurement is once a harm is identified, you try to use static data sets or probably in dynamic generated data sets now to understand and quantify how a harm is. And then you have like a mitigation strategy in place. You think about, spotlighting that Keegan did, or having a robust incident response. Hey, somebody's reported a harm. How do I actually respond to it? That kind of falls under the management sort of like pillar. So that's how I kind of like pull the thread there.
So is that to say, when you deliver a report, when you
Yeah.
finish a report from a red team assessment,
Yeah.
it will detail what went wrong, but
Yeah.
maybe provide little to no recommendation? Is that for another team?
Yeah, we know how to break things. That's what we tell folks. And this is like a classic. This is why I think having folks from the traditional security background really helps. We don't want to just say, hey, your baby is ugly and here's how, we can kind of break it. But kind of like recommending tangible go-dos so they can think about it. But I always tell like, hey, you need to think about researchers like Keegan. Go talk to him about mitigation. He's way more nuanced than that. The red team is more focused on how the different failure modes.
That makes sense. Is this something that's gating a product release? And if so, I'm interested in how you manage a potentially adversarial relationship with the PM who's trying to push that out the door.
Oh, great question. A lot of people management, which I did not
And
anticipate.
expectation management?
And expectation management. Someone's like, hey, we're going to ship tomorrow. Can you just push this button and red team it for us? We would love to automate ourselves out through the door. I think it's hard because on the one hand, our goal is not to the product team getting the feature out through the door. Our goal is to the customers to ensure that, they still trust the company to do the right thing. So I do not see the goal of the AI Red team to be like, hey, I'm going to help you in some sense. So there's this natural adversarial tension, but, in the words of my manager, you don't have to be an ass about it. So, so we do like a lot of pre-work to even get to the AI Red team. There's, hey, here's like SDL for AI systems. And we haven't gotten it right all the time, by the way. So this is also pushing it left as much as possible. Say, hey, here's some guidance for you to do it. Here's the very red team tools that we use for you to like red team before you come to us. So if you are going to come to the red team to identify failures, that's extremely expensive. And again, I'm preaching to the choir here. So trying to empower them is how I feel like that's my empathetic role. But the role of the AI Red team is not to get the product out through the door ASAP. That's not how we think about it. And so we generally see ourselves as like a speed breaker, but there are powers above me who make kind of like, who really hold a line. So, we are just one team in Microsoft. Um, so we have this like, I like to think of them as a Jedi Council, but a little bit more fun. So there's this thing called the Deployment Safety Board at Microsoft. And all our red team reports don't even go to the product team. It goes to these like CVPs.
The Jedi Council.
The Jedi Council. And it's made of really senior leaders in Microsoft, so they can't come and bully like me or Gary or Keegan to be like, hey, get it through the door fast. And there have been like this, and we're like, you talk with them. And I feel like that's how we have managed the political scene kind of over there, Hyrum.
From a wise person, Will Pierce, actually.
Yeah,
who
very
I
wise.
like to quote this, said that a good assessment doesn't come by luck.
Yeah.
It comes from a methodology.
Yeah.
So there's a way in which you can address these things. This can be hard in AI because AI is mostly about the unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
Is there a methodology that you've put together with your team that helps you to approach this in a systematic way?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do it. Pete Bryan and Gary kind of worked on even communicating the harms to people. So I'll give you a very like naive example. It's on some things like, hey, I'm able to run or suss out the environment variables using prompt injection. It's kind of okay. You can kind of map it to some security harm and have like a severity rating, and you can communicate that. We were struggling with responsible AI harms. You're like, how do we rate if something is generating racist content or if something is generating, like vile and unsavory thing? Like, what do we do? And there's been a lot of thinking around just the way we talk about this, separating the techniques from the harms, having a uniform sort of safety rating that we can use. And you can access this. It's published externally. It's the AI Safety Bug Bar. I think it went out a couple of months ago, thanks to Andrew Pavard. So we try to use a consistent scale to measure these harms and to think about this a little bit more systematically than throwing the kitchen sink at it.
How much of it is relying on known vulnerabilities and how much is, invented anew every time?
Oh man, I think Dan jailbreaks are everybody's favorite. And I think it's really helpful to think, before you invest a whole bunch of time trying to formulate your new sort of like jailbreak or new recipe, like trying the ones that appear in local llama or in the, in the jailbreak Discord chat, is really like a very low-hanging fruit for you to kind of think about this. So most of the time, it's run-of-the-mill things that get the work done. I think the novelty comes in the application. I really want to call out the work that Zenity, they gave a talk at Black Hat around M365 Copilot failures. Excellent ways of, if you look at the things they've done, at one point in the slide deck, he talks about how going to like a Discord chat, trying to take a jailbreak and just copy pasting it into as a payload in M365 Copilot. Now that is being really smart. An adversary is not going to like, try to do custom jailbreaks every single time. So that I think most of it exists out there and we're just piecing the puzzle and make it contextual.
I want to ask you an impossible question about the future.
Oh my God.
And right now, I think your role is mostly a product-centric, gating,
Yep.
exploratory exercise. I think, if red teams traditionally have become an enterprise security tool. So as enterprises are adopting more AI in their, again, to quote Josh Sachs, it's a load-bearing thing in an enterprise. Can you paint a picture in your mind about what different functions that other kinds of red teams might take for enterprise security, for application security, for different sorts of harms that might yet be unknown?
Oh, Hyrum, I
Impossible
genuinely
question.
do not know the answer to that. And I feel like anything that I'm going to tell you is a highly editorialized. Somebody, I think during Josh's talk said, we're moving from crystal ball to tarot cards. And that is where I feel like I am right now. It feels like from one snake oil to another, Hyrum.
Nice. I want to open up to audience questions, and Yang, if you wouldn't mind run this microphone, we'll have a lot. And I just want to call out, we'd want to talk to Ram for an hour. We only have 7 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
So just to preface with that, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Ram. I'm so impressed with all the work and your background too. So I think this is a very apt question to you. So the whole ecosystem around red teaming is evolving so dynamically. So there's new research, and we heard about the new techniques coming up. There are new tools in the market. So how are you ensuring that your red teaming approach is evolving and keeping up with that scientific research and the innovations happening around?
What an excellent question. I always think about this. I think my advisor was like, when there's like a deluge of information, there's a dearth of attention. So thinking about like I'm overwhelmed and just keeping track with the speed at which things are moving. I feel like I've subscribed now to like so many newsletters. I feel like I've lost track of where I read what. But I think having a team of folks who are really hungry to kind of sop in information and apply it has been I'm tremendously grateful for that. So this is by no means like a one-man show. We've got like one of the most humble, hungry, and people smart team that I really rely on.
Hi Ram, this is Supriti. I'm a grad student here at CMU. Really enjoyed your
Go Tardans. Yeah.
yeah, definitely go Tartans. I had a question. When you're at product, when do you know, what is enough? Like, when do you know when to stop? Like, because the loop could just keep going on, right?
Oh my God. What another excellent question. So the way we try to red team most of the times is assuming like a persona who's got access to a certain set of resources. Sometimes it might just be a benign user, which is pretty much open. Sometimes it may be an adversary who is more advanced and trying to see what kind of resources she might have to employ those sort of attacks. The reason why I bring this persona thing out is for a benign user, the risk surface is extremely large. And, there's so many different scenarios to think about. So we prioritize the ones that we think would cause the most amount of harms. We try to work through those, but also completely recognizing that we're not going to get through everything. Couple of things that we have done is, so prioritizing. The second one is also having automation has been very helpful. Before, it would take us roughly like 2.5 months to get through an operation. Now we can do the same amount of volume, like more than like 3,000, 4,000 sort of like multi-turn conversations in the order of days instead of like weeks or months. So that has also been helpful. And I feel this is where red teaming in conjunction with something like evals has been really helpful. So I know it's not like a satisfying answer. Like we don't be like, okay, we're done, we're dropping, we're stopping it. But we identify the harms and really think and look to the measurement team to also help us quantify that.
Hey, Ram. Thank you for the talk. I was curious, like you talked a little bit about harmfulness metrics, like defining harmfulness.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how that scales. Like, how do we capture the diversity of what like harm means for various populations? And do you see, like, is there merit to creating like multiple harm definitions, like a standardized harm scale? Yeah, I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Oh man, we have not figured this out. So Kyla, I'm looking for folks like you to pitch in and help out. We have harm ratings, which are also which are more objective, which are more subjective than objective. So it does feel qualitative in some sense. One of the things we may have seen in the pirate talk was having these scorers. Turns out that GPT-4 is very good at identifying harmful content. So using that as a metric, but again, realizing we're using like one LLM to kind of like measure the output of another model, so it doesn't like actually work. So there's there are known failures modes in these things, but right now we are having a Band-Aid over this problem.
Hi, Ram. Thank you for all your work. And I'm a former BKC fellow. I'm Paul.
Fantastic.
So I have a question about when you're reporting exploits that you and your team have found, or other similar groups. As a consumer / academic, sometimes we read these reports and maybe there's not enough detail. Some people question like lack of transparency. In fact, one of my colleagues was like, I'm not sure I quite believe this, but I also understand like from a security perspective, maybe you don't want to give all the information away so that some bad actor might try to replicate this or expand it in some way. So how do you balance between the need for security and transparency when reporting potential harms?
Oh my God, that's an excellent question. The good news is we can stand on the shoulders of, I think, Shane Longpree. I don't know his I may not be saying his name correctly. Wrote an excellent paper around safe harbors for trying to AI assessment and evaluation, and it really nails the problem of organizations would be like, hey, we love if you can come and red team our systems, but consumers may never know about the harms that came from them, or independent researchers may be disincentivized by companies' terms of service to do independent evaluation without, signing a huge NDA with these organizations. So I think it's a really interesting problem. That's why I was also very heartened to see CAMLIS hosting this AI red teaming event, kind of arming consumers to go do their independent evaluation that Ruman has been doing. So I completely share your concerns. The AI red team at Microsoft focuses more on, informing our product teams and our own model builders. So we don't, but for me, having these chilling effects of researchers trying to do their own evaluations and getting a cease and desist letter from a really powerful organization can be quite annoying, to say the least. So completely share your concern over there.
We have a lot of questions online. Unfortunately, we're also out of time.
Yeah.
And so I am going to exert moderator privilege and ask a final question in the wrap up. And Ram, it's a hard one. A lot of us in this community are actually on the defensive side. If there's a couple things that you've learned in your AI red teaming, what's some advice you'd give to those of us building AI-enabled systems?
Oh man.
In 30 seconds.
I think the best person to answer that is Keegan, because he's the one who's thought a lot about mitigation. So Keegan, I'm not passing the buck to you, but if you'd like to take that, I'd love for people to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I gave a talk on that a couple hours ago. So I'll point you to this YouTube video we're gonna put up a little bit later.
Well done in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
Thank you for the questions. Thank you so much, Ram, for joining us at CAMLIS today.
absolutely. Thank you.